Hello, this is the MMA India show, and I am Praveen Dabas, and I would like to welcome guest commentator Akhilesh Ganabarapu. Hi,
Hello,
Akhilesh.
Praveen.
Akhilesh is a very well-known, renowned, independent MMA writer. He writes most of the big articles on MMA in India, and he covers MMA in India and abroad as well. And we're very lucky to have him with us today as we cover UFC Fight Night 93, which happened last night in Hamburg at the very ungodly hour of 12:30 in India. But us, UFC MMA fans stayed awake, and we are glad we stayed awake because we had some really good fights in the fight card, which we are going to start talking about now. Akhilesh, thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
So first things first, the main fight card started with Hein versus Bang.
Yes.
I love that name, Bang. What a name to have for a fighter. I mean, you don't need a nickname with a name like Bang, right?
I guess not. No.
Yeah, somebody says, my name is Bang. He says, what's your real name? It's Bang. So anyway, jokes aside, my take, if you don't mind me going first, and then we shall take your expert comments on it as well. My take was both fighters were too cautious. They were trying to, I think both of them were waiting for the counter punch or kick for too long, and in fact the referee had to tell them a couple of times to get things moving. Even during the break, he went to the fighters and said, get a move on. They were waiting for too long. Now and then there were some exchanges. Bang got in some good hits, some kicks. Hein played the waiting game as well and got in some good hits as well. What is your take on the match? What is your analysis of it?
So both the fighters have very good, very powerful hands. They were kind of measuring each other out,
Exactly.
checking each other out in the first couple of minutes, as you said.
Yeah.
It is because both the fighters have one punch knockout power in the lightweight division. You could, see one fighter knocking the other out if they had engaged. So
Yeah.
what Hein did and what Taeyong Bang did was they kind of played the waiting game. They kind of measured each other. They kind of got the range control to begin with. You could see that from Hein's, game plan that he had executed it pretty well. He was switching stances. He was not, going into the range, into the pockets with Taeyong Bang for a long time. He was just getting his jabs, his combinations in, and getting out of the pockets. So that was a pretty decent game plan to begin with, I think. But as you went along, you have someone from a judo background, and you have another guy who's a good wrestler. So eventually, you would see someone taking the other fighter down, and that's what Hein did.
Yeah. Now tell me one thing. Of course, Hein did win unanimous decision 29-28, 30-28, 30-27, but they were booed in the end, right? Hein in his own home country. Now the boos weren't just reserved for Bang, they were for Hein as well, because I think they were booing at the fight itself, the fact that both fighters were so cautious. Now tell me one thing. What is your take on a fighter being overly cautious for the sake of the win rather than engaging for an entertaining fight?
So you have two different fighters. That is where you have someone, say, from a point fighting background who could, get those combinations in, get out of pockets, not do anything great, not come in with a lot of aggression, but still win the fights. And you have another person, like for example, you talk about Robbie Lawler. He doesn't care about the number of strikes that he gets in. He tries to go in. He tries to knock his opponent out.
Exactly.
So you have two different kind of mentalities. While as a fan you would appreciate the stand and bang kind of a style of a fighter, but coming from a fighter's perspective, at the end of the day, the fighters, how they are measured is by the win column. How many amount of wins have they been successful in raking up? So as a fan, I would want to see two fighters engage. But again, as someone that could kind of understand where the fighters are coming from, it's still okay. But at the end of the day, if the fighter has good technique, if the fighter has good style, stylistically, then that is more important, I think. Stylistically, the win is more important. Technique-wise, how a fighter executes his game plan is more important.
Okay, now Hein, of course, has been training in Thailand as well, and now in America as well. He's been traveling all over the world, and he's got some good styles. But again, my take on it as well is, from what I've been seeing, is the UFC does give a lot of weightage to entertaining and engaging fighters, right? Because they are the ones who match these guys up at the end of the day. If you want to fight the top 5, the top 10 guys, I think you have to show that you've earned it. And I personally don't think Hein has earned that in this fight. He did win. He got the win stylistically, of course, like we're saying. He played safe for the win rather than for the crowd. But do you think that kind of a game plan will get him better fights?
It might get him good fights, because at the end of the day, he still won. Now, you can talk about a fighter like Jared Rosholt, who was in the UFC heavyweight division not too long ago, and he was not known for his aggressive style at all. You know, he did whatever he could to stay away from the opponent, did enough to get the nod from the judges on points, and one fight he lost, UFC cut him. So,
there you go, exactly. I think the UFC is sometimes looking for opportunities to cut such fighters, and I'll give you another example, is Phil Davis.
Right.
Decent record, good wrestling, great wrestling skills, but not really entertaining at all. I think he was cut mainly because the UFC didn't find him an entertaining, engaging fighter. Of course, he's doing decently now at Bellator, but don't you think that was one of the main reasons the UFC cut him?
Yes.
And he's got some impressive wins over some really top guys, as we know.
Right, he did. So, at the end of the day, UFC is a promotion. They need to promote their fights.
Yes.
If you're not promoting exciting fights, you won't get in the numbers that you would want, that your network would want.
Yes.
So, at the end of the day, UFC is a promotion. UFC has to promote exciting fights.
So that's why I'm saying, shouldn't the fighter also be aware of that? That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
I think they should be.
They should be, but again, from a fighter's perspective, at the end of the day, it's not just UFC that you have. You have many other promotions in the world.
Of course.
Right. So the more wins that you rake up, the more wins that you pile up, the better it is for a fighter contractually to get a decent amount, a decent contract with other promotions, if not the UFC.
I don't fully agree with you on that. I do feel sometimes, a lot of times, the UFC and Dana White in particular have given bigger opportunities to people. Like I'll again give you an example, is right now Tony Ferguson, the guy he fought, what was his name? Tony Ferguson. He fought that guy who it was his first fight, Ivoto. Do you know which fight I'm talking about? Just recently, Tony Ferguson, he was supposed to fight Michael Chiesa. Michael Chiesa got injured and the other guy came in. Do you remember the guy's name?
Not to be honest, I need to check that out.
Okay, so he was a really exciting fighter. He came, started banging away, his foot movement was amazing. He did lose, but because it was such an amazing fight, Dana White did announce that this guy is going to go places and we're going to give him a really good fight next. Now that's what I'm talking about, that he did give it his all. He risked much more, I think, rather than play a safe game against somebody like Tony Ferguson, who's going to be fighting Rafael next. He's one of the top lightweights. He risked a lot. He went out and fought an engaging game. He didn't shy away, and I think because of that, he's going to get many more opportunities.
Right, but you could also make a case for someone like Rory McDonald, or a case for someone like Donald Cerrone. Now, these are the fighters who just go in, start banging, try to make for an exciting fight. But at the end of the day, how good of a contract are they getting? How happy are they with the promotion? So it all depends.
But I think that might be more negotiating skills rather than their actual fighting skills.
No, I mean, as I said, at the end of the day, I think winning is the most important thing for a fighter rather than the style. You have a lot of fighters, that come out and say we would rather win than be, strikingly impressive.
Okay, so let's agree to disagree and move on. What do you think?
Yeah. Sure.
So Ryan Bader versus Latifi. What was going to be a really exciting fight with both of these guys, and it did turn out to be a pretty exciting fight. Both of them primarily wrestlers who can strike really well, and I think that's the amazing thing about both of them is both of them in their early days really high level wrestling skills. Ryan Bader, in fact, was ranked he was ranked number 4 in America in wrestling.
Right.
Latifi is on a 3-fight win streak. He was rather until he, of course, as we know, lost now. Ryan Bader recently lost to Anthony Johnson, but before that he was going on more or less a title run.
Right, he was.
And of course he was stopped by Anthony Johnson, but he got paired up with Latifi, and I thought it was a really good matchup. Now the match started, of course, with both men moving really well. Bader was, trying to come in with his jabs. Latifi was trying to take it to the ground now and then, but his stand-up game really good as well. Do you want to say something about the first round?
Sure. So going in, I thought this would be, the fight where the striker, the person who could strike well, would get the nod. Because both are, as you said, excellent wrestlers.
Yeah.
Bader has improved tremendously in his striking, in his fight against Rashad Evans. He showcased impressive striking, and his movement was also a stark improvement from what it was before.
Yeah.
So going into the fight, I thought Bader would edge over Latifi because they both are good wrestlers. If Latifi wanted to take Bader down, Bader could always use his takedown defense, and
which is very good.
That
Which is very good. His takedown defense is very good. I remember Latifi caught a leg kick of his and tried to take him down, but wasn't able to.
Right.
In the first round.
Right. So what happened with Bader and Latifi in the first round was Bader was conscious enough to get into the pockets. He was conscious enough to land his combinations and get out. So he did not stay, because the thing with Latifi is he's short. He's short, but he's stout.
Yeah. He's very stout. He's almost built like a bull, typically.
Right, he is.
Yeah.
So if he landed any good combinations, if he got into the pockets, if he got into the range, and then even in clinches, for example, you could see Latifi try to take Bader into a clinch and work on him in clinches.
Yeah.
So Latifi's biggest strength was his short jabs, but when in range, when Bader was trying to land his overhead kicks, his spin kicks. From outside the pocket, from the outside. That was the perfect game plan. That was what I thought Bader would do.
Yeah.
Because he was faster.
Yeah.
He had excellent hands. He was the one who was getting into pockets and landing his jabs, landing his combinations and getting out. And Latifi had no other alternative except for looking for a takedown.
But Latifi did get a right hook, I think, in the first round and brought Bader down, but Bader did get up immediately. But
Right.
what I noticed in the first round, this is my take of course, was what I felt was Bader was a little shorter on confidence than Latifi. Latifi seemed to be more in control, had more of a game plan, and Bader was still, I think, figuring things out. That's what it seemed like in the first round.
I thought Bader had excellent game plan.
Okay.
I thought he did what I thought he would do.
Okay.
And that was land his combinations, get inside the pocket, land his combinations, his jabs, and get out of the pockets, get out of the range.
Yeah.
That's exactly what he did. And Latifi got frustrated. He tried to, yes, he connected with an overhand right, as you said.
Yeah.
But that was when he managed to get Bader inside the pocket. He managed to work in clinches for a while there.
Yeah.
But Bader did essentially what he was supposed to do. And the other thing with Bader was he knew that a win over Latifi would take him places, because looking at the light heavyweight division, you have Daniel Cormier and Anthony Johnson were supposed to fight.
Yeah.
Then you have Gustafsson and Bader. So win over Latifi would once again propel Bader into probably a title contender's fight.
Now, you said something really interesting, because I think Gustafsson versus Bader would be an amazing fight.
Yes. So I feel a little bad for Bader and Gustafsson, to be very honest, because their fights against Johnson, and that was a Johnson, who was on a mission, who had a purpose.
Yeah. As we saw recently against Teixeira.
Yeah. So you have seen what happened to Teixeira as well. So
Yeah.
Johnson is is a very, very dangerous fighter. He can knock anyone out in any division with one punch. He
Yeah.
has that one punch knockout power that no one else has, I think, in the entire UFC.
Yeah.
So their fights with Johnson, they got caught. Even Gustafsson got caught. Same with Bader.
Yeah.
Johnson had very good takedown defense, so it practically nullified Bader's wrestling.
Yeah.
So I thought, if Bader managed to win in this fight, he would find himself one fight away from probably another title shot.
Though in the press conference, Ryan Bader didn't seem to have the confidence of getting a title shot very quickly.
Yes, so it all depends because you have John Jones, who is rumored to come back soon.
Yeah.
You have Johnson. Dana White said DC would fight Johnson, but with John Jones coming back, now you have a talk about Johnson and John Jones fighting first. That leaves Gustafsson and Bader out of the title contention for now. So until the entire main event scene gets sorted, until you know when John Jones comes back, until you know what happens with DC and Anthony Johnson, I think Gustafsson and Bader have to practically sit out and wait to see what happens next.
And I think it'll make sense for them to wait rather than take a fight just for the sake of it.
Right. So that was why I think Bader's win was so impressive.
Yeah.
If either Gustafsson or Bader managed to finish the fights impressively, I thought if John Jones has to sit out for the next 6 months, so we don't know until his State Athletic Commission hearing takes place.
Yeah.
So depending upon how long John Jones sits out,
Yeah.
you have Bader and Gustafsson with a very impressive win who could take on the winner of DC and Anthony Johnson.
Yeah. Now coming to round two, the actual way he won. At the beginning of the round, Latifi was still coming in well. Bader shot in, I think, for a takedown. Latifi almost got a headlock. Bader got out of it. Bader got a good right hand and an elbow in. Now, by this time, like you said, I think Bader was figuring out things pretty well. He knew Latifi was changing levels. Right. And he did predict, you can say, him changing levels when he did. Now, what I noticed was that I think at that time where he was trying to avoid a punch, Latifi brought his head down. I think almost as in to go for a takedown, which is when Bader got in the kick to the face, which literally sent him like flying backwards, and it was amazing kick and it was amazing timing. He predicted it really well that he's going to try changing levels, going for the takedown, and he got in the kick, at the perfect timing. And what I found most impressive was when Latifi went down, he didn't go in and try to finish him. He just had one look, and I would say in a very Mark Hunt style, just walked off. He knew he had finished him.
Yes, so this was why I thought the first round was impressive for Bader, because he set things up. He set things up because he was working from the outside,
Yeah.
and Latifi could not get his combinations in.
Yeah.
So towards the end of the first round, you could see Latifi going for takedowns, which Bader again defended very well. So in the second round, Bader knew that if he stayed on the outside, if he still connected with combinations, there is always a chance that Latifi would go for another takedown. And Bader scouted that very well.
Yeah.
When Latifi went for a takedown, he had that level change. Bader immediately got his knee up. He connected with his knee and immediately knew that Latifi would be knocked out.
Yeah.
So I think again the first round set things up for Bader to win in the second round. That is what I found very impressive with Bader's game plan.
Great. So moving on to one of my favorite fighters, Gustafsson versus Blankovic. Excuse me, another light heavyweight match.
Right.
Gustafsson, as we know, according to me, is one of the most talented fighters. My opinion, he did win that fight against John Jones. He
Right.
took the fight to John Jones like no one else has been able to.
Right.
He made John Jones looked totally beat up after that match.
Yes. So even with John Jones' fight, as you said, Gustafsson, I thought Gustafsson won.
Yeah.
But the difference in that fight was John Jones, I thought, did not take Gustafsson seriously at that point. And even after the fight, John Jones said, I did not take this guy seriously. Or seriously enough.
Well, do you think he actually did, or do you think that was more of an excuse?
I think John Jones was complacent at that point.
Okay.
I really do, because his personal life, it's well documented.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so until Jones got in trouble, and that's when he started getting his act together. That's when he took everything seriously, and that's when he started even doing the weight training.
Yeah.
So once, and you have to be very conscious of the fact that John Jones, who was not taking things very seriously,
Yeah.
was still the best pound for pound fighter in the world.
Yeah.
So imagine how John Jones will be if once he does take things very seriously.
Yeah, but I personally feel you can't judge fights on that. You have to judge them as they happen.
Yeah. So
If he didn't
since
take it
then-
seriously, that's his problem. You know?
Right, but since then, John Jones faced Daniel Cormier, who was again an Olympic wrestler.
Yeah.
And you could see Jones beating Daniel Cormier in his own game.
Yeah.
So Jones is scary,
Of course,
once-
he's very scary. I mean, he is the number one pound for pound fighter, and he deserves to be.
Yes, so that's what. If Jones did not take things seriously and he was this good,
Yeah.
imagine what will happen once he gets his act together.
Coming back to Gustafsson, he also, of course, had a title fight against Daniel Cormier.
Right.
Amazing fight again, which, as far as I remember, was a split decision in favor of Cormier.
Right.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's correct.
Correct. So again, very close to being a champion twice, and took 11 months off after he lost to Johnson.
Right.
The Johnson fight was second after he lost to Daniel Cormier, or was it the other way around?
He lost to Johnson first.
And
he
then
lost
the
to-
fight against Cormier, right? So he took
Right.
11 months after that, came back and took what is relatively, I would not personally call it a very safe fight, because Blankovic does have a lot of one punch knockout striking capabilities, but he's ranked number 12. He is not in obviously the same grade as Gustafsson. Gustafsson was looking for a victory to get him back in the mindset of a winner, and I think in the first round he played a really smart game. He knew Blankovic was going to try to stand and bang and get one of those one knockout punches. Gustafsson consistently took it to the ground then.
Right. I thought Gustafsson had a very good game plan. Once again, it's all about how you execute it once you get inside the cage.
Yeah.
So I interviewed Gustafsson before a fight.
Oh wow.
During which I asked him. So they both know each other very well, because they also train out of Alliance MMA, the same gym.
Yeah.
So Gustafsson knows Jankovic well. Jankovic knows Gustafsson well.
Yeah.
And the thing with Gustafsson is, so when you saw the first round, the beginning of the first round, you saw Gustafsson was not putting his hands up. He was just keeping them low, which is why Jan found an opening. He connected with good combinations.
He did, yeah.
But I thought the difference would be to see how Gustafsson would manage going to the ground against Jan, because Jan is a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So that's where I was very impressed, because Gustafsson controlled the fight on the ground. Once and Gustafsson has, again, he told me that he was working on his wrestling and he was working on his grappling. Once the fight went to the ground, Gustafsson was easily able to get to the top position. He was able to work from the top position. Although he was not able to finish Jan, he looked very impressive. He looked very impressive.
He did. Blankovic, I think, was trying for an armbar now and then, which again he defended really well.
Right.
And he did. I think the referee did a couple of times try to push them to get things move on, but he did. He had total top control. He was getting in elbows and some punches now and then. I think he was playing, like you said, he was following his game plan to a T.
Right, and I necessarily do not agree with all of the referee's decisions to stand the fighters up.
Same here. I totally agree with you as well. I think Gustafsson was following a plan. He was getting things moving on, and I think the referee was, you can say they weren't the correct decisions at those times.
Yeah, but again, you had the crowd who were booing the fighters, because The very reason was because you had very good fights on the prelims card.
Yeah.
But once it came to the main card, you saw the first fight and
Yeah.
then it fell flat.
Yeah.
So the fans were booing whenever the fighters went to the ground.
Yeah.
But I thought Gustafsson was still, doing good transitions. He was looking for submissions. But Jan, again, with a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, was relatively comfortable on his back.
Yeah.
But you have Gustafsson who has very good ground and pound as well. So once you have him on top of a fighter and he goes to work, it's very hard for any other fighter to get out of that predicament, and that's where even Jan found himself.
And that's where most of the fight was spent, with Blachowicz on his back and Gustafsson on top of him.
Right. So if I remember properly, Gustafsson, I think, had about 10 minutes of control
Yeah.
over the fight,
Yeah.
which says a lot. So I thought, Jan, again, he was given a fight against a fighter who was out of his league.
Yeah.
So, but again, the UFC wanted to build Gustafsson because he lost 2 fights
Yeah.
back to back. He needed a victory, and with again the John Jones predicament, you never know. Rumble, who gets injured, if a fight between DC and Rumble is booked, then you need a replacement, and the next 2 replacements can only be Bader and Gustafsson.
Yes.
So that's why this fight was very important. It was very important for UFC to build these fighters as well after the losses.
Correct, which I think they've managed to do.
Yes.
Now coming to round 3, in the beginning, Blachowicz did try to come in strong. I think he connected, Gustafsson connected with the right hand. Blanc got in some kicks before again, Gustafsson took it to the ground again, which is where it ended.
Right, so Jan knew going into the 3rd round that he had to knock Gustafsson out because Gustafsson took the 1st and 2nd rounds.
Yeah.
The only debate during the 2nd round was it a 10-9 or a 10-8 for Gustafsson? But again, so yeah, everyone knew that going into the 3rd round, Gustafsson had the first 2 rounds, so Jan had to knock him out. That was the only possibility to win a fight for him.
Yeah. And
so Gustafsson again, was able to take Jan down, and he continued to work on him on the ground. He once again got on top. He got the top position where he was able to land in some really nasty elbows.
Okay, great. So that was the Gustafsson Blachowicz fight. Now we're just going to take a quick 1-second break, and we're going to come right back to you. Hi, and we're back with the MMA India show. This is Praveen, and we have Akhilesh with us, and we are now going to come to the headline fight, Arlovsky versus Barnett, and it turned out to be everything it was expected to be, and more. Just going into a little about Arlovsky and Barnett. Arlovsky, of course, is a really, really scary fighter. He has, one-punch knockout power. He can, on his day, I think, defeat anybody. He was on a really good roll. He defeated Antonio Bigfoot Silva. Travis Brown, of course, one of the most amazing fights we've seen. That round was just amazing, the way Travis Brown took so much punishment and kept standing. Then Frank Mir. Before he ran up against the 2 fighters who are going to fight, of course, the champ right now, Stipe Miocic, and Overeem, the number 1, the title contender who's going to fight for the belt now. He ran up against both of them and lost. And, he's a former UFC champ, of course, though he did get his belt because the champ at that time got injured, so he was the interim champion, and he became champ when the champion at that time, I forgot his name, was not able to recover still in time, so they gave him the unified belt. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes. I think it was Tim Sylvia.
Yes, you're right. So, and that's why we have you on the show. And he's a Sambo champion. He's an amazing fighter. He made a big comeback. Once he came to the Jackson training camp, he had a very good run, like we said, which was stalled by Overeem and Miocic. Barnett, one thing I find very interesting about Barnett is his persona, both in the ring and out the ring, seems to be very different. Of course, he's called the War Master. He's an amazing fighter with all-round skills. outside the ring, he's a self-confessed nerd. You know,
Right.
reading and what was amazing, I think, just a couple of days before the fight, he was having a beer and a burger, enjoying, saying, so what if I'm having a beer? If he had lost, that beer would have come and bit him in the ass. Of course.
Right.
But as we know, he didn't. Both really amazing, well-rounded fighters, and I think they gave us an amazing fight throughout the 3 rounds. The first round, just amazing the way they came into it, all guns blazing. It was figuratively speaking, they were like standing and banging, and Orlovsky went down, got up, Barnett went down, got up, Orlovsky went down again, got up, got his bearings. It was amazing the beginning, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. So this was a fight that is about 10 years in the making, at least.
Of course, yes.
So at a
and
point
just
when-
a bit of trivia, they both started on the same fight card. They're UFC careers.
right.
Both are
And-
ex-UFC champs.
Right. When Andre was at the top in the UFC, you had Barnett, who went to Japan, who was
And in
flying
Pride.
straight in Pride.
Yes.
So, at that point, Barnett was the top fighter in Japan, and Andre was the top fighter in the United States. And, realistically, they should have fought about 10 years ago. But still, they were supposed to fight again about in 2009 or 10, but that didn't happen again. So this was a long time coming for both of the fighters. Barnett wanted to fight Andre because so Barnett knows that after his loss the last time against Ben Rothwell, he needed to get a victory to keep his title dreams alive.
Yes.
And Arlovsky knew that going into the fight, if he could beat Barnett, who is an exceptional fighter, one of the most dangerous fighters, one of the greatest catch wrestlers ever.
Now, can you just explain a little to the viewer about catch wrestling?
Sure. So catch wrestling is when so wrestling and grappling are two completely different, and catch wrestling is when you use your opponent's momentum, you take him down, and then go into holds, wrist locks, your basic submission holds. So that is catch wrestling.
So it's an extension of Greco-Roman, basically.
A freestyle.
A freestyle, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So, yes. So essentially, so this is a debate that is happening everywhere. What is the difference between grappling? What is the difference between BJJ and wrestling?
Yeah.
So this all comes under, the bigger picture is submission grappling.
Yeah.
Under submission grappling, you have Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you have wrestling. So everything comes under one umbrella when you look at a broader perspective. So Barnett is a dangerous fighter when he closes the distance, when he gets his opponent into the clinches and takes him down. Because Barnett, he has submitted a lot of fighters. I think the last time Rothwell submitted Barnett was the first time Barnett lost by a submission, as in a submission hold.
Yeah.
Rather. So and going into the fight, Andre was not stopped by submission until now. So
Yeah.
this was a very interesting clash of styles.
Yeah.
I also talked to Andre Arlovsky before the fight, and he told me that he was working on his boxing and his wrestling.
Okay.
He particularly mentioned that he was working on his wrestling because he knew his opponent. He knew
Yeah.
how dangerous he was once the fight went to the ground. And I called the fight to end in the third round, and this is no joke. I called the fight to end in the third round. Barnett wins by submission because it's.
I hope you put some money on it then.
I kind of put it on Twitter. How can I put money on this?
I'm just kidding. Yeah. Well, maybe I need to put some money and ask you for tips then.
Yeah, and that can be worked out as well. So the thing with Arlovsky was, and this was something that even Barnett's striking coach told him. Weather the storm for the first round, and then you go into the second round, and that's when Andre starts gassing out.
Yeah.
And going to the third round, Andre doesn't have anything to put behind his punches.
Yeah.
So this is where even Barnett, I think, was conscious. I think it was a perfect game plan executed by Barnett because he weathered the storm in the first round.
Yeah.
He took Andre down in the second round, started working on him.
But Orlovsky is the one who took him down first via the trip.
Yes. So Andre, that was probably a game plan that he was trying to follow, taking Barnett down, trying to work on him.
Yeah.
But that was not the best, best move for Andre.
Yes.
Again, because you have an exceptional wrestler in Barnett, one of the best grapplers in the UFC in Barnett. So Barnett, good transitions once again, excellent positions. He managed to, get on top of Andre.
So, sorry, as we saw when he did take him down, he did get up and stand just outside of his guard, and he wasn't sure whether to go in or not. And I think the referee had to prod them on then.
Exactly. Once Barnett was down and Andre had the opportunity to get into Barnett's guard or try to work on him on the ground, but he didn't.
Yeah.
Then that was a very intelligent move, because doing that would be a suicide for Andre.
Yeah.
Given Barnett's pedigree.
Yes.
So it was a very interesting fight. It was something that a lot of fans expected, because going into the second and third round, Andre doesn't have much in his tank. And he started gassing out after, during the second round, once
Yes.
Barnett was on top of him.
Yeah.
After the second round, you could see Andre breathing heavily. So going to the third round, I thought, this is the time when the fight will end, because once Barnett has gone 25 minutes before, it is not a problem for a wrestler.
Yeah.
As a wrestler, he has a lot of...
Though at the looks of it, Barnett is a much heavier man. I think he has 10 kgs more than Orlovsky, and Orlovsky seems much more fitter than Barnett.
Yes, so Barnett was about 18 pounds over Andre going to the fight.
Yeah.
So, but again, Barnett is used to fighting at that weight. He's used to, wrestling at that weight.
Yes.
So I did not think that would be a problem. The only problem for Andre would be once Barnett gets on top of him or gets his back and starts working on him on the ground.
Yeah.
And, just the amount of pressure that Barnett, exacts on his opponent. It gets very difficult for anyone.
I think he was using his weight to a really good advantage.
Yes. So once you get on top of a fighter or you get someone's back and you start working on them,
Yeah.
it takes a lot of strength for them to try and get out of that predicament, and which is what Andre tried to do.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you saw in the third round, Andre was completely gassed out.
Yeah.
Barnett saw the opportunity and submitted him.
Yeah, though he did get, there was an eye poke in the third, which was,
Right.
by mistake, of course. The referee didn't stop the fight. Barnett thought that the referee was going to, I think, stop it for some time. He didn't, and Orlovsky did sneak in and get a big punch to the face.
Right.
But Barnett recovered pretty quickly.
Right. So Barnett is tough as nails. One of the toughest fighters ever.
Yeah.
So
in fact, sorry, I'm coming in between. I think it was the first round where Orlovsky got a flurry of punches in, and Barnett just smiled or laughed it off.
Right.
That was, I
So
think, towards
Barnett-
the end of the first round.
Right, so Barnett knew, going in the fight, Barnett knew, and again, this is something that even his striking coach had told him.
Yeah.
Weather the storm. The first round, Andre's gonna just come out with his combinations. Andre's, biggest strengths are his overhand right, and then his uppercuts that he throws in his combinations. Those are deadly.
Yeah.
If they connect, most of the times he would finish the fight.
Yeah.
So Barnett knew going to the fight that he has to weather the storm in the first round, but going into the second and probably the third, he would be at an added advantage, because that is where Andre starts gassing out.
Yeah.
That's when Barnett can take him to the ground and choke him out or submit him.
And Orlovsky, it was pretty obvious that he had more or less gassed out, had more or less nothing left in the tank. His corner was prodding him to go on and give it his all in the last round. And if you see how the fight finished as well, it was a really typical way of ending with a rear naked choke, where he had top mount. He made him give up his back through punches, and once he gave up his back because he was trying to avoid getting punched in the face, he went in for the rear naked choke, and that was the end of the story right there.
Yes, so even in the dying minutes of the second round and then in the first initial minutes of the third round, you saw Barnett trying to either get an Americana or a Kimura on Andre, and the only option that Andre had was to shift his hips, trying to get out of that predicament, and that's when Barnett got the top mount. Then he transitioned and got Andre's back. So that was a very, very good game plan on Barnett's part. As I said, it was something that everyone expected. And that's how the fight finished as well.
Yeah, amazing. We got to see every facet of MMA in that fight. I think that's what was so amazing about that fight. We got to see two really good practitioners of the art of MMA, especially in Barnett, and he seemed very confident throughout the fight, except for that once, I think, in the beginning exchange where he went down. I think throughout the fight, he never seemed lacking in confidence or disturbed. He always seemed to have his wits about him, and he seemed to be thinking all the time, knowing what he was going to execute, and knowing that Arlovsky is going to gas out, and he fought according to his plan.
Yes, the best thing about Barnett, as you said, he's a nerd in real life, and I can tell you that because I talked to Barnett once. It was a very interesting conversation because he knew more about Indian wrestling than I did.
Oh, okay, wow, great.
So he was teaching me about Kushti in India.
Okay.
So then I thought, wow, I thought I was the one who was following all of this, but Barnett is way leaps and bounds above anyone and everyone else with his knowledge.
So he knew about the art of Kushti and how it's different from other art forms of wrestling, or he knew about Indian wrestlers per se?
No, he knew about Kushti, the ins and outs.
Okay.
He said, I want to come down to India, I want to put Kushti on the map. That's what he said basically to me.
Okay.
So you have someone who diligently studies every aspect of the game in Barnett.
Okay.
He's not someone who fights because that is his way of making income, but he loves to fight.
He loves the art of the game as well. I think he still considers himself a student of the game.
Yes, he does. Very, very much. Because if you see him in his gym, he comes in first, stays till the end, and you don't see a lot of veterans doing that.
Yeah.
But the reason he does that is because MMA is one sport that keeps evolving every day.
Yeah.
So unless you're at the top of the game, unless you see the younger fighters and what they're doing and try to learn from them, you're not going to do much going later. So Barnett, as I said, is one such fighter who loves the art of fighting, tries to improve every day, and tries to learn as much as he teaches.
Yeah. So, what do you think the future holds for both of them now?
I don't know about Andre. I mean, he's on a 3-fight losing streak. The last time he lost 4 fights, he changed camps. He went to Jackson, and he got his momentum back. But I don't see at this point in his career him mounting a comeback once again. I think it's very difficult for him.
Yes.
Although I love Andre Arlovsky, I don't know if he can go forward. His predicament is kind of similar to Carlos Condit after what Condit said after his last fight, where he said, I don't know if I have what it takes to continue. So Andre, I don't know. I mean, I hope he stays. I hope he gets another couple of fights before hanging up his boots. I don't know. I mean, I think he'll stick around for about 1 more year, 1 or 2 more years. But Barnett, with this victory, I think he has revived his title aspirations.
Do you think he's 1 fight away from a title shot?
I don't think he's 1 fight away. I think he's about 2 more fights away.
2 more fights? Okay, fair enough.
At least 2, because you have Cain Velasquez, you have Verdum, you have Stipe, you have Overeem, and you have Ben Rothwell, who just lost, so maybe 2 fights away from getting another title shot.
But there is so much talent in the heavyweight division, and as we've seen, a lot of times it's the fighter on the day, who gets that one knockout punch in, who wins. And it has been changing wastes, should I say? The belt has been changing wastes a lot.
Right. So the interesting thing is, I also asked this to Arlovsky. I said, what do you think about the heavyweight division? Because the title keeps changing just after the first defense. Because the last 2 defense, the last champion who had 2 successful title defenses was Cain Velasquez, and that was about 3 years ago, 3-4 years ago.
Against Santos.
Yes. Yeah. So Andre said, you know what, this is because of the stiff competition. The other thing is, the heavyweight division has a lot of veterans. But again, these are the kind of guys who want to, have a last run with the title before they hang up the boots, because most of them are in their mid-30s in the heavyweight division.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting phase. It's an interesting phase because you don't have another younger heavyweight coming up at this point. If you look at the number 1 and number 2 fighters who are going to fight at UFC 203, Miocic and Overeem. I think they're about the younger fighters, if you can call it that, in the heavyweight division, and that kind of speaks volumes.
Yeah. Well, that's another really exciting fight, and let's see what happens with that. We won't talk about it today. We'll leave that for another day.
Sure.
So with that, I think we shall call it a fight night. And thank you all for tuning in, and thank you, Akhilesh, so much for joining us and giving us your expert views on the fight. And we shall look forward to speaking to you more about not just fights, but also about the state of MMA in India today.
Sure, that will be a pleasure. I look forward to doing that.
Thank you, and talk to you soon.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye. Hi, everyone. This is Praveen Dabas, and do log into all of our social media at MMA India Show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. See you soon.